Dr. Sarah Chen wiped sweat from her forehead as she stood in the middle of the Gobi Desert, watching her team carefully brush sand away from what looked like nothing more than rocks. The sun beat down mercilessly, and she wondered for the 100th time why she had agreed to join this expedition. 3 months they had been digging in this barren wasteland, following satellite images that showed unusual geometric patterns beneath the sand. The Chinese government had been surprisingly cooperative about the dig, which made Sarah suspicious. Usually, they were protective about foreign archaeologists working on their soil. But when the satellite data from the European Space Agency showed perfectly straight lines forming complex patterns 20 feet underground, even Beijing became curious. Sarah's specialty was ancient languages and writing systems. She had decoded Mayan glyphs, translated Linear A, and published papers on Proto-Elamite script. But lately, she felt like she was just going through the motions. Every discovery seemed to be more of the same human civilizations, same patterns, same mistakes repeated across cultures. Professor Chen, the excited voice belonged to Marcus Webb, a graduate student who had been working the eastern section of the dig. He was running toward her, holding something in his hands. Sarah walked over to where Marcus stood beside a perfectly rectangular stone that had just been uncovered. The stone was unlike anything she had seen before. It was completely smooth, almost glass-like, but definitely stone. And covering its surface were symbols that made her heart race. The symbols were carved with incredible precision. Each one was exactly the same depth, exactly the same width. But what made Sarah's hands shake as she examined them was that they looked almost familiar, yet completely wrong at the same time. "Marcus, get Dr. Rodriguez over here immediately," Sarah said, never taking her eyes off the stone. "And call the dig coordinator. Tell him we need to expand this section right now." Dr. Elena Rodriguez was the team's geology expert, a woman who could identify any rock formation on Earth. When she arrived at the site 10 minutes later, she took one look at the stone and frowned. "This is impossible," Elena said, running her hands over the surface. "This material, I've never seen anything like it. It looks like granite, but it's too smooth, and look at this." She pointed to the edges of the stone. "These cuts are machine perfect. No ancient tool could have done this." Sarah knelt down and began photographing every symbol on the stone's surface. There were 43 symbols arranged in 7 rows. As she studied them, a strange feeling grew in her stomach. She had spent 20 years studying ancient writing systems, and something about these symbols was triggering a memory she couldn't quite grasp. "The patterns," Sarah whispered to herself. "It's like they're familiar but backwards." That evening, Sarah sat in her tent with her laptop, comparing the symbols to every writing system in her database. The closest matches were to early Sumerian cuneiform, but even that was a stretch. These symbols were too advanced, too precise. Around midnight, she made a discovery that made her call Marcus and Alina to her tent immediately. "Look at this," Sarah said, pointing to her computer screen. "I've been running the symbols through every translation program I have. Nothing worked until I tried something unusual." She showed them how she had flipped each symbol horizontally, creating mirror images of the original carvings. "When I reverse them like this, they match patterns from multiple ancient Earth languages. Sumerian, Egyptian, early Chinese pictographs, even some Mayan glyphs. But that's impossible. These civilizations never had contact with each other, and they developed writing thousands of years apart." Alina stared at the screen. "You're saying whoever carved these symbols knew about human writing systems from different time periods and different continents?" "It's worse than that," Sarah said. "Look at this translation I got when I reversed the symbols and applied multiple language algorithms." On the screen appeared a message in English. "Repository of knowledge created for future understanding. Civilization markers recognized and preserved." Marcus spoke first. "Professor, are you suggesting that whoever made this stone was copying human writing systems?" Sarah saved her work and looked at both of them. "I'm not suggesting anything yet, but tomorrow we need to find more stones. If this is part of a larger site, we need to know what we're dealing with." The next morning brought a discovery that changed everything. The expanded excavation had revealed not just more stones, but what appeared to be the corner of a massive underground structure. The stones they had found were apparently just the top edge of something much larger. Dr. James Morrison, the dig coordinator, arrived that afternoon with additional equipment and a team of specialists. Morrison was a careful man who had managed archaeological sites around the world, but Sarah had never seen him look worried before. "Dr. Chen," Morrison said, pulling her aside, "I need you to keep your preliminary findings quiet until we understand what we're dealing with. The satellite images we used to find this site weren't from the European Space Agency." Sarah felt cold despite the desert heat. "What do you mean?" "They came from the Chinese military. This site was discovered during a routine geological survey, but the patterns were so unusual that they called in experts. The Chinese government contacted the international archaeological community because their own experts couldn't explain what they found." That afternoon, Sarah worked with the expanded team to carefully expose more of the structure. What they found defied every archaeological principle she knew. The construction was too advanced for any known ancient civilization. The stones fit together with tolerances measured in millimeters. There were no tool marks, no evidence of the construction process. But it was the writing that kept Sarah awake that night. As they exposed more surface area, they found more symbols, and every single one of them was a reversed version of some human writing system. Not just one culture, but dozens of them, spanning thousands of years of human development. Sarah realized she was looking at something that couldn't exist according to everything she knew about human history. Someone or something had been studying human civilizations across time and continents, and had left a record of that study buried in the Gobi Desert. As she sat in her tent that night, updating her research notes, Sarah wrote a sentence that would later become famous. "We are not the first intelligence to study human civilization." Outside her tent, the desert wind howled across the sand, carrying with it the feeling that the world was about to change forever. Sarah had spent her career uncovering the past, but now she realized she might be uncovering something that would reshape humanity's understanding of its place in the universe. The Chinese military guards who had arrived that evening stood silently around the perimeter of the dig site. Their presence meant that word of the discovery was already moving up official channels. Soon, Sarah knew, this quiet archaeological dig would become the center of international attention. She looked at her computer screen one more time, at the reversed symbols that seemed to mock everything she thought she knew about ancient history. Tomorrow, they would dig deeper. Tomorrow, they would find answers to questions that humanity wasn't ready to ask. But tonight, Sarah Chen sat alone in the Gobi Desert, holding the first evidence that Earth had been visited by someone who found human civilization interesting enough to study, document, and preserve in a way that only now could be understood. The discovery was just beginning. The helicopter arrived at dawn, bringing with it 3 people who would change the course of the excavation forever. Dr. Yuki Tanaka was a xenolinguist from Tokyo University, someone Sarah had only heard about in academic circles. Dr. Raman Akafer was a theoretical physicist from Cambridge, and the third person introduced himself simply as Agent Collins from an organization he didn't name. Sarah watched them walk across the dig site, noting how Agent Collins immediately began taking photographs with equipment that looked far more advanced than standard cameras. Dr. Morrison met them at the main excavation area, and Sarah could see from their body language that this was no longer just an archaeological expedition. "Dr. Chen," Dr. Morrison called to her, "please bring your translation work and join us." Sarah gathered her laptops and research materials, feeling like she was about to step into something much larger than a simple dig. When she reached the group, Dr. Tanaka was already examining the exposed stone surfaces with instruments Sarah didn't recognize. "Dr. Chen," Dr. Tanaka said without looking up from her work, "your preliminary translations have been remarkable, but I need you to understand something. You're not the first person to encounter these reversed writing systems." Sarah felt her stomach drop. "What do you mean?" Agent Collins spoke for the first time. "Dr. Chen, in the past 15 years, we've found similar sites on 4 different continents: Australia, Chile, Romania, and now here. Every site has the same characteristics: advanced construction that defies known ancient techniques, and writing systems that are perfect mirror images of human languages." Dr. Akafer knelt beside one of the exposed stones and ran a handheld device over its surface. "The material composition is consistent with terrestrial minerals, but the atomic structure has been altered in ways we can't replicate. Someone used technology we don't understand to create these monuments." Sarah set up her laptop and showed them her translation work from the previous days. I've identified reversed symbols from 12 different human writing systems so far. Sumerian, Egyptian, Mayan, Chinese, Sanskrit, Linear A, Linear B, Proto-Elamite, Phoenician, Runic, Early Arabic, and something that looks like it might be from the Indus Valley civilization. Dr. Tanaka nodded grimly. That matches what we found at the other sites, but Dr. Chen, there's something else. The Indus Valley script you mentioned, we still can't read the original version, but the reversed version here translates perfectly when we apply your mirror technique. The implications of that statement hit Sarah like a physical blow. You're saying that whoever created these monuments understood human languages better than we do ourselves. Not just understood, Agent Collins said. Preserved them, look at this. He showed Sarah photographs from the Australian site, where archaeologists had found reversed Aboriginal pictographs that were older than any known Aboriginal art, yet somehow more complete and detailed than anything found in traditional sites. The working theory, Dr. Ackefer said, is that we're looking at an archive. Someone or something has been systematically documenting human cultural development across thousands of years and multiple continents. Sarah spent the morning working with Dr. Tanaka to translate more of the exposed text. What they found was extraordinary. The reversed writing contained detailed descriptions of human societies, technologies, and cultural practices. But these descriptions were written from an outside perspective, like an anthropologist studying a foreign culture. One passage, when properly translated, read, "The bipedal mammals demonstrate remarkable adaptation in tool creation. Their communication systems evolve rapidly but maintain core symbolic structures. Individual creativity appears to drive technological advancement rather than collective planning." Another section described human religious practices. The subjects engage in ritualistic behaviors directed toward invisible entities. These behaviors appear to provide social cohesion and individual psychological stability despite the absence of direct communication with the proposed entities. By afternoon, the team had exposed enough of the structure to realize they were looking at something massive. Ground-penetrating radar showed that the monument extended more than 100 feet underground and covered an area the size of a football field. Dr. Morrison called a team meeting as the sun began to set. "We need to discuss the implications of what we're finding. This site is going to attract attention from governments, media, and organizations around the world. We need to be prepared for that." Agent Collins spoke up. "The other sites have been classified and are being studied by international teams under strict security protocols. This site will likely receive the same treatment within the next few days." Sarah felt frustrated. "So we just hand over our discovery to be locked away by governments." "Dr. Chen," Dr. Tanaka said gently, "this is bigger than archaeology now. If we're right about what this represents, it's evidence that Earth has been under observation by a non-human intelligence for thousands of years. That's not something that can be announced casually." That evening, Sarah worked late into the night with the translation team that had arrived with the specialists. They had made a breakthrough that changed their understanding of the entire site. The reversed writing wasn't just documentation of human civilization. It was a teaching tool. "Look at this pattern," Sarah explained to Dr. Tanaka. "The symbols progress from simple to complex, showing the evolution of each writing system. But more than that, they show connections between writing systems that developed independently on different continents." Dr. Tanaka studied the translations. "It's like a master class in human linguistic development. Whoever created this understood the underlying principles of how humans develop written communication." But the real shock came when they translated a section near what appeared to be the entrance to the underground structure. "Warning, repository contains knowledge beyond current development stage. Access restricted until technological advancement permits safe comprehension. Premature exposure may result in cultural disruption or psychological trauma." Sarah stared at the translation. They knew we would eventually find this, and they were concerned about giving us information we weren't ready for. Dr. Ackefer, who had been monitoring their translation work, looked up from his instruments. "That matches what we found at the Romanian site. There's a progressive structure to these monuments. The surface level contains basic documentation of human culture, but the deeper levels..." He paused. "The deeper levels contain information we're still trying to understand." Agent Collins received a radio call and stepped away to answer it. When he returned, his expression was serious. Dr. Chen, I need you to pack up your research materials. A full international team is arriving tomorrow morning, and this site is being classified under the Archaeological Security Protocol. Sarah felt panic rising in her chest. What does that mean for my work? It means you'll continue your research, but as part of a larger team with security clearances and oversight. This discovery is too important to leave to chance. That night, Sarah sat in her tent, reviewing everything they had discovered over the past few days. The evidence was overwhelming. Earth had been visited and studied by an intelligence that understood human civilization better than humans understood themselves. The reversed writing was just the beginning. Tomorrow, when the international team arrived with more advanced equipment, they would begin excavating the deeper levels of the monument. And based on what they had already found, Sarah suspected that the real discoveries were still waiting underground. She looked out at the desert landscape, now dotted with military vehicles and security equipment. The quiet archaeological dig she had joined 3 months ago had become something that would reshape humanity's understanding of its place in the universe. As she finally tried to sleep, Sarah thought about the warning message they had translated. Whoever had built this monument had been concerned about humans finding it too early. But as she drifted off to sleep, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that maybe they had found it exactly when they were supposed to. The international team that arrived the next morning transformed the archaeological site into something resembling a military operation. Sarah counted representatives from 12 countries, each bringing specialized equipment that looked more suited for a space mission than a dig in the Gobi Desert. Dr. Elizabeth Warren from MIT led the American contingent, bringing ground-penetrating radar systems that could map underground structures to a depth of 500 feet. The Germans arrived with precision excavation robots that could remove sand grain by grain without disturbing delicate artifacts. The Japanese team brought translation computers powered by artificial intelligence that could process ancient languages in real time. Sarah felt overwhelmed as she was assigned to Translation Team Alpha, working directly under Dr. Tanaka and a new specialist, Dr. Hassan al-Rashid from Cairo University. Dr. al-Rashid had spent 30 years studying ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs and had been brought in specifically because of some discoveries at the Romanian site. Dr. Chen, Dr. al-Rashid said as they set up their equipment, I need to show you something that was found in Romania 3 months ago. It will help you understand why your work here is so critical. He pulled up photographs on his tablet showing stone carvings similar to what they had found in the Gobi, but these contained reversed Egyptian hieroglyphs that told a complete story. When we translated these reversed hieroglyphs, we found something extraordinary. They described the construction of the Egyptian pyramids, but from the perspective of someone watching the construction happen. The level of detail is impossible unless the observer was actually present during the building process. Sarah studied the translations. The text described construction techniques that archaeologists had only theorized about, along with precise measurements and engineering solutions that wouldn't be discovered by modern archaeology for decades. But that's not the shocking part, Dr. al-Rashid continued. The text also describes Egyptian religious beliefs and social structures with perfect accuracy, but it's written like a research report. Clinical, objective, like an anthropologist studying a foreign culture. Dr. Warren interrupted their conversation with news that made everyone stop working. We've reached the entrance to the underground structure, and there's something you all need to see immediately. Sarah followed the team to the excavation area, where the robots had carefully removed sand to reveal a perfectly preserved doorway. The door itself was made of the same strange material as the surface stones, but what made everyone stare in silence were the symbols carved above the entrance. The symbols were reversed versions of modern languages: English, Spanish, Russian, Mandarin, Arabic, and others that were clearly from the 20th and 21st centuries. But the construction of the door was clearly ancient, buried for thousands of years. This is impossible, Dr. Warren whispered. These languages didn't exist when this structure was built. Dr. Tanaka was already running her instruments over the carvings. The stone is definitely ancient. Carbon dating of organic material trapped in the carvings shows an age of at least 4,000 years. But these languages, she paused, these languages are from our current time period. Sarah felt dizzy as the implications hit her. They didn't just study ancient human civilizations, they're still studying us. Agent Collins, who had been unusually quiet all morning, finally spoke. Dr. Chen, this matches intelligence reports we've been tracking for decades. UFO sightings, unexplained archaeological discoveries, technological anomalies that suggested ongoing observation of human development. The team spent the rest of the day carefully documenting the entrance before attempting to open it. When they finally used remote equipment to examine the door mechanism, they found something that defied explanation. The door was designed to open only when specific conditions were met. Not physical conditions, but technological ones. Built into the door mechanism was a scanner that could detect electromagnetic signatures from modern electronic devices. It's like a lock that can only be opened by a civilization that has developed modern electronics, Dr. Warren explained. Whoever built this wanted to make sure that humans could only access the interior when they had reached a certain level of technological development. When the door finally opened, triggered by the electronic signatures from their equipment, Sarah was among the first team to enter the underground structure. What she found inside changed her understanding of human history forever. The interior was a vast library, but unlike any library ever seen on Earth. The walls were lined with the same strange material as the exterior, and carved into every surface were reversed symbols from human languages spanning 5,000 years of development. But these weren't random translations. The entire library was organized chronologically, showing the development of human civilization from the earliest Sumerian settlements to modern industrial society. Each section contained detailed observations of human culture, technology, and social development. Sarah's translation team worked frantically to document what they were seeing. The level of detail was extraordinary. There were reversed cuneiform tablets describing Mesopotamian agricultural techniques that archaeologists had never discovered. There were reversed Egyptian hieroglyphs explaining pyramid construction methods that engineers had only theorized about. There were reversed Mayan glyphs describing astronomical calculations that were more accurate than modern measurements. But the most shocking discovery came when they reached the section of the library dedicated to the modern era. Here, carved in reversed English, Spanish, Mandarin, and other contemporary languages, were detailed observations of 20th and 21st century human society. One passage, translated from reversed English, read, "Subject species demonstrates accelerated technological development following global conflict events. Individual creativity enhanced by information sharing networks. Warning indicators suggest approaching technological threshold requiring intervention protocols." Another section described modern human behavior with clinical precision. Subjects maintain tribal social structures despite global communication capabilities. Individual identity increasingly tied to digital persona creation. Biological stress responses indicate adaptation difficulties to rapid technological change. Dr. Al-Rashid made a discovery that brought the entire translation team to his workstation. "I've found a section that appears to be recent additions to the library. The stone carvings are identical in style to the ancient ones, but the content," he paused. "The content describes events from the past 10 years. Sarah read over his shoulder as he translated reversed symbols describing modern internet culture, social media behavior, and global political developments. The observations were accurate down to specific details that only someone with intimate knowledge of human society could have known. "They're still watching us," Sarah said, "still documenting everything we do." But the most disturbing discovery was yet to come. In the deepest section of the library, Dr. Tanaka found what appeared to be a prediction section. Here, reversed symbols from human languages described potential future developments of human civilization. The predictions were written like contingency plans, describing different possible paths for human development based on choices that hadn't yet been made. Some paths showed humans achieving remarkable technological advancement and joining some kind of galactic community. Other paths showed self-destruction through war, environmental collapse, or technological mismanagement. One particular passage sent chills through the entire team. If subject species achieves stable technological threshold without self-termination, integration protocols may be initiated. Repository knowledge will be made fully accessible upon demonstration of cultural readiness. As the team worked through the night, documenting and translating the vast library, Sarah began to understand the true purpose of what they had found. This wasn't just an archive of human civilization. It was an evaluation tool created by an intelligence that had been monitoring human development for thousands of years. The reversed writing system wasn't just a way to preserve human languages. It was a test, designed to be decipherable only when humans reached a certain level of technological and intellectual development. The fact that they could now translate it meant that humanity was approaching some kind of threshold. But what that threshold was, and what would happen when humanity crossed it, remained hidden in the deeper sections of the underground library. Sections that the team would begin exploring the next day, armed with new questions about humanity's place in a universe that was far more crowded than anyone had imagined. As Sarah finally left the underground library that night, she looked up at the stars and realized that somewhere out there, someone was still watching, still documenting, still deciding whether humanity was ready for the next step in its development. 3 days into exploring the underground library, Sarah's team made a discovery that forced an emergency meeting with government representatives from around the world. Deep in the library's core, they had found a section that wasn't carved in stone like the rest of the structure. Instead, they discovered a room containing what could only be described as technology. Smooth, metallic surfaces covered with symbols that glowed with their own light when the team's electronic equipment came within 10 feet of them. The symbols were still reversed human languages, but these weren't carved. They appeared to be some form of advanced display system. Dr. Warren's team determined that the room was responding to their presence, activating systems that had been dormant for thousands of years. But the technology was so far beyond current human understanding that they couldn't determine how it worked or what its purpose might be. "It's like finding a computer in a medieval castle," Dr. Warren explained to the emergency assembly. "We can see that it's technology, we can see that it's responding to us, but we have no idea how to operate it safely." Agent Collins had been joined by representatives from the UN Security Council, including Dr. Maria Santos from the European Space Agency and General Harrison from the U.S. Strategic Command. The discovery had clearly escalated beyond archaeology into matters of global security. Sarah found herself at the center of discussions about humanity's readiness to interact with technology that could reshape civilization overnight. The translations her team had completed suggested that the glowing room contained what the alien observers called integration protocols, instructions for humanity to join some kind of larger galactic community. But accessing those instructions required more than just translation skills. The technology in the room was responding to human electromagnetic fields, brain waves, and other biological signals that the team was only beginning to understand. Dr. Kenji Nakamura, a neuroscientist who had arrived with the Japanese contingent, made a proposal that divided the international team. "The system appears to be designed for direct neural interface. It's waiting for human consciousness to connect with it directly." General Harrison immediately objected. "You're talking about putting a human brain in contact with alien technology. The risks are completely unknown." But Dr. Santos supported Dr. Nakamura's assessment. "The entire structure has been designed as a teaching tool. Everything we've found suggests that whoever built this wanted to help humanity advance, not harm us. The warnings we translated weren't about the dangers of the technology, they were about the dangers of accessing it too early." Sarah spent hours each day in the glowing room, studying the symbols that appeared and disappeared across the metallic surfaces. The patterns were complex, showing interconnections between human civilizations that official history had never documented. But more importantly, they showed humanity's place in a larger galactic context. One display that remained consistently active showed a three-dimensional map of the local galaxy, with thousands of star systems highlighted. Many of these systems contained symbols indicating inhabited worlds, and Earth was clearly marked as one of many planets under observation. Another display showed what appeared to be a timeline of galactic civilizations, with humanity appearing as one of the newest species to reach technological awareness. The timeline suggested that dozens of other civilizations had gone through similar development periods, and that successful species eventually joined a galactic community dedicated to supporting the development of younger civilizations. But the most intriguing display showed potential human futures. Like the stone carvings they had found earlier, these displays presented different development paths for humanity. Some paths showed rapid technological advancement leading to interstellar travel and galactic citizenship. Others showed stagnation, decline, or self-destruction. What became clear was that humanity was approaching a critical decision point. The technology in the room could provide access to advanced knowledge that could solve every major problem facing human civilization: energy, disease, environmental destruction, even poverty. But that access came with responsibilities that humanity might not be prepared to handle. Dr. Chen received approval to attempt limited neural interface with the alien technology, but under strict safety protocols. The international team had concluded that the potential benefits outweighed the risks, especially since the alien observers had clearly designed the system for human use. The interface process was unlike anything Sarah had ever experienced. When she placed her hands on the designated contact points on the metallic surface, her consciousness seemed to expand beyond the boundaries of her own mind. Suddenly, she wasn't just reading about human history. She was experiencing it from the perspective of the alien observers. She felt their curiosity about human creativity, their amazement at human adaptability, and their concern about human tendencies towards self-destruction. But more than that, she gained access to a vast network of knowledge that connected civilizations across the galaxy. She learned that the alien observers weren't invaders or conquerors. They were members of a galactic community dedicated to nurturing the development of younger species. The community, which humans might think of as a galactic United Nations, had been established millions of years ago by the first species to achieve stable interstellar civilization. Their primary purpose was to guide developing species through the dangerous transition from planetary to galactic consciousness, without direct interference in natural development. Earth had been under observation for 5,000 years, not to exploit humanity, but to determine when humans would be ready to handle the responsibilities of advanced technology without destroying themselves or other species. Through the neural interface, Sarah learned that humanity was closer to that readiness than anyone had realized. The fact that international teams could cooperate on the archaeological discovery despite political tensions was seen as a positive indicator. The rapid global response to the COVID-19 pandemic had demonstrated humanity's ability to unite against existential threats. The growing awareness of environmental issues showed that humans were beginning to think in terms of planetary rather than tribal survival. But the interface also showed her the challenges ahead. Access to galactic community knowledge would make every human problem solvable within decades, but it would also make humans dependent on technologies they didn't fully understand. Previous species had struggled with the transition, some becoming stagnant when advanced technology removed the challenges that had driven their development. The galactic community had learned that the most successful species were those that maintained their unique cultural characteristics and creative perspectives, even as they gained access to advanced technology. Humanity's diversity and creativity were seen as potentially valuable contributions to galactic civilization. When Sarah disconnected from the interface after 3 hours, she found herself with memories and knowledge that she couldn't have acquired in a lifetime of study. But she also carried a heavy responsibility. She now understood that decisions made in the next few years would determine humanity's path for thousands of generations. The international team gathered that evening to hear Sarah's report on the neural interface experience. What she told them would reshape humanity's understanding of its place in the universe and its potential future among the stars. But first, they had to decide whether humanity was truly ready for the knowledge that could change everything. And that decision would have to be made not by governments or scientists, but by humanity as a whole through the choices they made in the coming years. As Sarah looked around at the assembled representatives from around the world, she realized that the alien observers had been right to wait. Humanity was indeed approaching readiness for galactic citizenship, but the transition would require wisdom, cooperation, and courage that would test every human value and institution. The underground library in the Gobi Desert had opened a door to the stars. Whether humanity would walk through that door successfully was now up to the species that had impressed alien observers with its creativity, adaptability, and stubborn refusal to give up in the face of impossible odds. 6 months after the neural interface experience, Sarah found herself standing before the United Nations General Assembly, preparing to deliver a presentation that would change human civilization forever. The discovery in the Gobi Desert had been verified by independent teams at the other sites around the world, and the evidence was overwhelming. Humanity was not alone, and it was being evaluated for membership in a galactic community. The months since her interface with the alien technology had been filled with careful preparation. International teams of scientists, philosophers, psychologists, and world leaders had worked together to understand the implications of contact with galactic civilization. The process itself had been seen as a test by the alien observers. Humanity's ability to cooperate on such a momentous decision was part of the evaluation criteria. Sarah had spent those months working with Dr. Tanaka and Dr. Al-Rashid to translate more sections of the underground libraries. What they found consistently supported the message she had received through the neural interface. The galactic community was genuine in its desire to help humanity advance, but the transition required careful management to preserve human autonomy and cultural identity. The libraries contained detailed case studies of other species that had gone through the integration process. Some had thrived, maintaining their unique perspectives while contributing to galactic knowledge and prosperity. Others had lost their identity, becoming dependent copies of more advanced civilizations. A few had rejected galactic community membership entirely and were allowed to develop in isolation until they chose to reconsider. What became clear was that the choice was genuinely humanity's to make. The alien observers had the technology to force integration or to prevent human space travel entirely, but their ethical framework prevented interference with free choice. They would provide guidance and access to advanced knowledge only if humanity actively chose to accept it. Standing at the podium before representatives from every nation on Earth, Sarah began her presentation with the simple truth that had emerged from months of research and deliberation. 6 months ago, we discovered proof that Earth has been observed by a non-human intelligence for thousands of years. Today, I'm here to tell you that this intelligence represents a community of civilizations spanning the galaxy, and we have been invited to join them. Sarah explained how the reversed writing system had been a test, designed to be solvable only when humanity reached sufficient technological and intellectual development. The underground libraries were teaching tools, created to help humans understand their place in galactic history and the responsibilities that came with advanced technology. But most importantly, she explained the choice that humanity now faced. The galactic community offers access to technologies that could solve every major problem facing our species within decades. Clean energy, disease eradication, environmental restoration, even the extension of human lifespan. But accepting this knowledge comes with responsibilities. Sarah showed the assembly images from the neural interface, the galaxy map showing thousands of inhabited worlds, the timeline of galactic civilizations, and the potential futures for humanity based on different choices. If we choose to join the galactic community, we commit to certain principles: no violence against other intelligent species, environmental stewardship of our planet, and contribution to the advancement of younger civilizations as others have contributed to ours. We would gain access to interstellar travel, advanced medicine, and knowledge accumulated over millions of years. She paused to let the magnitude of the offer sink in before continuing. But we would also face the risk of losing what makes us uniquely human. Other species have made the transition successfully by maintaining their cultural identity and contributing their unique perspectives to galactic civilization. The alien observers believe humanity's creativity, adaptability, and diversity could be valuable contributions to the galactic community. Sarah then addressed the alternative. We also have the choice to decline the invitation and continue developing independently. If we make this choice, the alien observers will respect it completely. The underground libraries will remain accessible for our study, but we will receive no additional help or contact until we choose to reconsider. Earth would remain under distant observation to ensure we don't threaten other species, but our development would be entirely our own. The presentation included months of analysis by experts from every field. Economists had calculated the impact of access to advanced technology. Sociologists had studied the potential effects on human culture and identity. Military experts had assessed the security implications of joining or rejecting galactic civilization. The conclusion from every analysis was the same. Both choices offered genuine advantages and disadvantages. Joining the galactic community offered rapid advancement but risked cultural absorption. Independent development preserved human autonomy but meant facing future challenges without advanced help. After Sarah's presentation, the real debate began. Representatives from every nation, every culture, and every major human institution participated in discussions that would determine humanity's future for thousands of generations. Religious leaders debated whether joining galactic civilization was compatible with human spiritual beliefs. Scientists argued about the benefits and risks of accessing advanced technology. Politicians struggled with questions of sovereignty and governance in a galactic context. But gradually, a consensus emerged. Humanity would choose to join the galactic community, but with carefully negotiated conditions designed to preserve human independence and cultural identity. The transition would be gradual, taking place over decades rather than years. Human institutions would remain in control of Earth, with galactic community advisors providing guidance rather than governance. Most importantly, humanity would maintain the right to withdraw from the galactic community at any time if the relationship proved harmful to human development or identity. The final vote was closer than many expected, but clear enough to represent genuine global consensus. 147 nations voted to accept galactic community membership, 38 voted against, and 7 abstained. The alien observers, monitoring human communications from their hidden positions around the world, registered the decision and activated integration protocols. The changes began immediately but subtly. New technologies appeared in research institutions around the world, always with enough supporting documentation that human scientists could understand and improve upon them. Diseases that had resisted treatment for centuries suddenly yielded to new therapeutic approaches. Environmental restoration projects began succeeding beyond all projections. Sarah returned to the Gobi Desert 6 months after the UN vote, now leading an international team studying the gradually expanding underground library. New sections appeared regularly, containing information specifically requested by human governments and institutions. The alien observers were fulfilling their promise to provide knowledge while allowing humans to maintain control of their own development. Standing in the same spot where she had first seen the reversed writing that changed everything, Sarah reflected on the incredible journey that had brought humanity to this moment. The quiet archaeological dig had become first contact with galactic civilization, but it had happened exactly as the alien observers intended, gradually, carefully, and with respect for human choice. The stars no longer seemed distant and empty. Sarah knew that thousands of civilizations were out there, many of them going through the same transition that humanity was now experiencing. Earth had joined a community dedicated to nurturing the development of intelligence throughout the galaxy, and humans would now have the chance to help other species take their own steps toward the stars. But perhaps most importantly, humanity had proven to itself that it could make momentous decisions through cooperation rather than conflict. The process of deciding whether to join galactic civilization had brought human societies together in ways that had seemed impossible before the discovery. As Sarah worked in the library that now grew daily with new knowledge, she remembered the warning message they had translated months ago. Premature exposure may result in cultural disruption or psychological trauma. The alien observers had been right to wait. Humanity had found the library exactly when it was ready to handle what it contained. And now, looking up at the desert sky that no longer seemed like a barrier, but like an open door, Sarah Chen knew that humanity's real adventure was just beginning. The species that had impressed alien observers with its creativity and determination was about to take its place among the civilizations that shaped the development of intelligence throughout the galaxy. The excavation in the Gobi Desert had uncovered more than ancient artifacts. It had uncovered humanity's future among the stars.